Hello, it's Employee a Million, and welcome to the brand new year 2022. For the past few years, I've been doing Q&As, and I'm going to do another one this year. I asked you last month in a community post to ask some questions, and while you guys are still asking me a lot of questions per, comment, I'm more than happy to answer most of them. So let's get started. First set of them from Cartoon TV. Can you show your tier list of every show you reviewed this year? The thing about tier lists is that I know a lot of you want to see them, and I did kind of joke about making one way back when I did Kids Next Door, but I want to wait until I've gotten through a certain variety of animated series or a certain franchise to, do a tier list, like all the 1990s Nickelodeon shows ranked in a tier list, all the 2000s Cartoon Network shows in a tier list. That way, you get a better sense of what I like or don't really care for about a certain era. But yeah, thanks for the question. I always have it under consideration. Second question you asked was, what's your favorite Hanna-Barbera cartoon? I'm gonna be very, sneaky about this and say the Powerpuff Girls, since that was technically a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. One of their last, I think Billy and Mandy was the last one they ever had their name on, and even that was the pilot. I'll pick the Powerpuff Girls, but if we're talking about classic Hanna-Barbera, the only one I've seen a lot of is the Flintstones, so I'll go with that. What's your favorite and least favorite South Park episode? What's my favorite era? My favorite episode of South Park is It Hits the Fan from season 5 because of just how vulgar it is. You think South Park, you think vulgarity, this one just pushes it to the limit. It gets so offensive that it's not really offensive, it's just kind of got a fine enough message about censorship and whatnot. It sort of feels like a sequel to the movie in some ways. My least favorite episode that I've seen is Stanley's Cup because it's just got a very depressing and unfunny, predictable ending. I've heard horror stories about the plastic surgery episode, but I haven't seen it yet. I think you've got the right idea about what the golden era of South Park is. I've been rewatching season 1 and it hasn't really been that funny. I feel like it really hits its stride in season 3, then gets a lot funnier in 4 and 5, then starts to taper off around season 8, but I do have some level of appreciation for some of the episodes in the tween era, like Major Boobage, Make Love Not Warcraft. The Easter special, I think, is really underrated, and I really don't care that much for the modern, very political seasons. As for the Dr. Slump anime, I've seen the first episode of it. I can kind of see the appeal of it. I can maybe even see a bit of Chowder being influenced by it. But yeah, it's a bit too weird for me. I'm not that much of an anime head outside of Pokemon. At least, I've seen the first episode of the 1981 series. I thought it was fine. Not a bit weird for me, but maybe that's just because of how different Japanese cartoon weirdness is from Western cartoon weirdness. And I saw the first episode of the 90s reboot, and I didn't like it as much, so there was definitely something there that was lost in translation. I think it's fine, but yeah, I probably would need to see more anime, and I've already got a lot of Western animation to catch up on and that people want me to see. So thank you for asking that. Obviously, the answer for every will you review this or that is an eventually, because I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. What is your top 3 favorite and least favorite of the Cartoon Network shows? I can't really answer that until I've got a better understanding, until I've seen nearly all of them, because I've only seen less than 10, I think, so far. And they've done dozens and dozens over the years. My thoughts on Flapjack? I remember watching a few episodes as a kid, and like Chowder, I thought it was alright, but who knows, I could be really blown away by it whenever I get around to reviewing it. That's the thing with a lot of Cartoon Network shows from the 2000s, is that I remember finding it kind of okay or even kind of annoying as a kid, but I might be really happy when I watch it as an adult with a bit more experience and knowledge and context with what Cartoon Network was going through at that time. Like, Billy and Mandy, I really don't think I've ever really given it the time of day, but if I ever do a review of it, I might end up falling in love with it because it is fairly popular, and I think that's probably for a good reason. So yeah, future's looking bright for this channel, if nothing else. Rebel Friend asks, I know it's a little late, but what are your thoughts on Midlife Crustacean getting banned? It's that SpongeBob episode from season 3 that ends with SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs, and Patrick going on a panty raid and getting caught by Mr. Krabs' mother because they ended up in her house. I like the episode. I remember thinking, yeah, that's a bit extreme for a kids show, but it was a different time. And I really don't think that censoring it or removing the episode is gonna do anything to, like, make that behavior not look okay. If anything, it gave the episode free publicity. I've heard that it's back in rotation in some places, so it didn't really work. I don't know if it was just for free publicity, because it is a funny episode. I think that the panty raid isn't something that's meant to be glorified. But yeah, it's a very tough issue, and I think I've got my own answer on it, and yours might be different, that's fine. Our LA system has a lot. In your personal opinion, which SpongeBob episode should survive in the end of the universe? I'd say Pizza Delivery, because it's just the quintessential SpongeBob and Squidward adventure episode with a lot of, like, mundane conversational elements. And I think that's what SpongeBob is at its best. Good friendship, good comedy, with a nice story, great, like, physical and verbal gags, and a nice message at the end. It's not my favorite, but I think that should survive to the end of the universe. Favorite Pokemon? Wooper. Do you like the Nintendo Mother or Earthbound trilogy? I've heard amazing things about those games, but I've just never really been into RPGs. They just take up so much time, and, like, I've played a few, but someone's gonna ask me this later. Like, am I into RPGs? What's my favorite RPG or something like that? I generally prefer, like, casual games or platformers or action games, and even then, I'm not much of a gamer anymore. But I'd say that I've played through the first half of Pokemon Blue, like on the original Game Boy, and I did play the first Mario and Luigi game on GBA, and I think that's my favorite RPG because it's fun, it's accessible, it's very colorful, it's got good dialogue, and in general, it's just designed to appeal to people who like the Mario platformers, and it appealed to me. Not saying anything about the Mario and Luigi sequels or the Paper Mario games or the original Mario RPG, I just never played them, and it is just because I really haven't had the time for RPGs. Maybe when I'm like 50, who knows. What's my absolute least favorite Fairly OddParents episode of all time? I said this in the modern Fairly OddParents retrospective, but I have no positive feelings on Dadlantis. Like, it's just full of plot devices. All the characters are plot devices. There's no good jokes, there's no good animation. The gags are repetitive and mind-numbing at that. It's just everything that went wrong with the Fairly OddParents in an 11-minute package. And finally, you like old classic NES and Master System games? Sort of. I like a couple of the Mario, Mega Man games, but whenever I get the itch to go back to retro games, it's usually from the 4th to the 7th gen that I'm looking at. And I mean, it's kind of debatable whether the 7th gen can count as retro yet, but you know what I mean. I like them to be a little more involved, a little prettier, and with a less of the bull that clogs up the modern video game industry. So thank you for all of those questions. Kubo Fanatic 2004 asks, would you start doing film series reviews? I really want to. I mean, I kind of did that with the Equestria Girls series last year. But if I do, Shrek will be the first. I know I kind of teased that with my community announcement of Equestria Girls, but I mean, Shrek is a generation-defining franchise, for better or for worse, and I would love to give my takes on each of the movies. So if I ever do film reviews, which I haven't got any planned for this year so far, Shrek would be the first. Who is my favorite and least favorite MLP character? I said in the first one that Pinkie Pie's my favorite, and a lot of her episodes are the most fun and enjoyable. She's very funny, she's got a good performance and a good outlook on life, and I think that's just a positive character to market to kids. And my least favorite character is Discord, mostly because of what they did with him after he was reformed in season 3. He just wasn't really funny, never learnt anything, which is sort of the point of the show. And he put a major dent in the finale, which is otherwise sort of the finale they needed, but yeah, Discord is not my favorite part of the show by any stretch. What is the worst season of a good cartoon? Season 10 of Fairly Odd Parents, even if a little around half of the Fairly Odd Parents can be counted as good for most people. What are the worst episodes that you've reviewed in 2021 in no particular order? Gosh. This is the reason I didn't want to do a worst of 2021 video, because I wanted to leave the year on a positive note, but just to get, episodes I really hated out of the way. Double Date Dawn, Arnold Betrays Iggy, Yakety Sax from LLP, and Matter of Principles for that matter, and like half of season 10 of FOP. It's just a really miserable season. Will you review regular show Gravity Falls and Gumball? Maybe in like 10 years. But thank you for all those lovely questions. Pizza Rolly, for you, which episode of The Simpsons, seasons 1 to 20, best represent the style of each season, whether it's good, meh, or a bad episode? I've got a whole list here that I thought up. No Disgrace Like Home for season 1, because they're sort of working things out, but it is getting funnier. War of the Simpsons for season 2, because again, they're taking it more seriously, but they've still got a few things to get right. Radio Bart for season 3, because it's a little more hearty and a little more referential, but still a few things to learn from season 2. Selma's Choice for season 4, because it's a character piece, but a very wacky one. Bart's Inner Child for season 5, it's a very subversive wacky character piece with a wacky sense of humor. Home of the Great for season 6, because everyone in Springfield's involved and it's a big event episode, and a lot of the most memorable season 6 episodes feel like event episodes. Season 7, I picked Bart the Fink because it's more character driven and a little more somber in places, which counterbalances the slightly more mature tone and sense of humor of that era. For season 8, it's the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show, because it's a lot more meta and they thought the show was going to end around that point, but it didn't. Season 9, I picked Lost Our Lisa because it's trying to be sentimental, but there's a lot of wacky stuff in it that kind of detracts from it, and it just kind of reminds you of where the show was headed. For season 10, I picked Viva Ned Flanders because that is officially where the show had headed. Like, it's got a much darker sense of humor, a few more plot holes, but overall still has some good jokes in it. For season 11, I picked The Mansion Family because this is the most season 11 image in the universe. For season 12, I picked The Great Money Caper because it's a little meaner and a little more violent in places, but it's also got the non-ending. For season 13, I picked Half Decent Proposal because half decent is the best way to describe season 13. I mean, I think it's one of the better, 2000s seasons, but you know what I mean. For season 14, I picked Break My Wife Please because I know what they were trying to do, but it is really hard to take the marriage seriously by that point. For season 15, I picked iDobot because it is trying to get a little zanier again, like the Merkin years, but it goes too far in some places. For season 16, I picked On a Clear Day, I Can't See My Sister because of just how miserable it is. Like, nothing really works about it, and none of the characters are likable, and the story makes no sense, and all of that. It's just the total crescendo of everything that kind of gets annoying about that era of The Simpsons. Season 17, I picked My Fair Laddie because, it's a sort of trying but kind of failing at the same time, which a lot of episodes of that season do. Like, there's an attempt there, and that I can respect, but it also just doesn't end up very good. Season 18, I picked Marge Gamer because it's a pseudo character piece, pseudo wacky Homer subplot, and pseudo sort of trying to be a big event episode with a big set piece, and the latter element of season 18 led to it being one of the most memorable of that era, I feel. Season 19, I picked E Pluribus Wiggum because it's very topical and very dated, and it only really gets interesting near the end. And for season 20, I picked In the Name of the Grandfather because it's something that would have been funnier 15 years earlier. Whew. Thank you for that very challenging question, Pizza Rolly. As for your last two, favorite Mario game is Galaxy 2, favorite Sonic game is 3 and Knuckles, and my favorite Looney Tunes character gets Bugs Bunny because I don't have a lot of memories with Looney Tunes, but Bugs Bunny is the mascot. From what I've seen, he's had the funniest bits, and I think that makes him deserving of the mascot status. Guy5678 has the right idea, just asking one question. Thank you so much. Do you think 2000s animation is overhated? Yeah, I don't know where the hate was. There's a lot of amazing things that happened in that decade. The golden age of Pixar, a lot of the best SpongeBob episodes, a lot of the 90s Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network shows were still going strong early on in the decade. Not all the shows on other networks were that bad. Phineas and Ferb and Avatar near the end of the decade, Total Drama and Chowder too. I've said this before, but I feel like it isn't as tricky to like as people think. Every decade has its good and bad stuff, and I think that in the 2000s case, its good stuff is really dang strong. Mr. Wackford is the king of the show asks, can you make a video talking about cliches in animation? That's the funny thing. For about a year now, since June of last year, I've been writing up a huge video idea in my spare time where I just go through 50 odd different Fantastic Voyage episodes, where character A or B shrink down into something and go into character C's body, and it's either really gross or really weird or actually really good. There's like 5 Magic School Bus episodes in there, one from the reboot, I think. The reason it hasn't made much progress is that it's very hard to, think of new things to say about each episode once you get to the 45th Fantastic Voyage episode. But I am hoping to get it done eventually, like record it and edit it and break my back trying to export it. And hopefully that can lead to something cool with my channel, like I could do massive videos about clone episodes or time travel episodes or something like that, because I think there are good episodes of each sort of cartoon cliche, but there are a lot of very derivative ones that really aren't the best of their specific shows, and that could be interesting, so that's always a question I've had in the back of my mind. And what is my favorite and least favorite video game? Super Mario Galaxy 2 is my all-time favorite video game. I don't really have a lot of games I've played that are bad. Really only some of the, smaller games on Sonic Mega Collection Plus. Sonic Blast, I'd say, was the worst of that, and it's the worst game at the top of my mind. Okay, Wally Walrus. 5 different questions. What's my opinion on these cartoons? The Kirby Right Back At Ya anime. Like what I've seen. Woody Woodpecker, the classic series. Haven't seen much, but I get why it's a classic little thing. The Penguins of Madagascar Nicktoon. I really liked it as a kid. I liked a lot of the episodes. Some of them really stuck out to me and were memorable and just as funny as the Madagascar movies. So yeah, if I ever put it on the roulette wheel, that would be a fun thing to go back to. Dragon Ball Z, I've heard really good things about it, but I really don't know where to start. Like the original series with DBZ, it's one of those really big franchises that, like Pokemon, I never know if I'm really ever gonna finish, so yeah, depends on how I feel by the end of the Pokemon anime, which I'm still thinking of finishing off at the Diamond and Pearl saga. DuckTales, the original series and reboot, again, from what I've seen, first one is okay. Like, Disney was still figuring out how to make shows on that budget in that time period, And the results spoke for themselves. It ended up being very successful, but not as good as their movies, even then, the 80s, you know. But the 2017 series, from what I've seen, has been really great. Like, everyone crushes their performances, the writing is very good, the stories are very good, and, you know, maybe in like 10 years, when I've run out of things from the 90s and 2000s to talk about, I'll be doing 2010s cartoons, and that'll be one of the videos I've got the most passion to make. SpongeBob has a couple. What is your least favorite episode of a good cartoon? Atlantis, as I said previously. What are your thoughts on Cephalopod Lodge? I think it's a very average episode with a good idea, like Squidward being part of the secret society and SpongeBob and Patrick ruining it for him. It would have been a lot better if it wasn't from the middle seasons, because even by mid-season 6, a lot of the jokes they do in that episode are really been there, done that. But it had potential, and a couple of the jokes are all right in it. Like, for some reason I keep thinking about the chicken costumes whenever I go back to it. But yeah, I think it's not the worst of that season, which is damning it with faint praise. What have I thought of season 13 so far? I've seen 2 episodes, the first 2, the Pets Are People episode and Plankton and Karen going on a date. I know they're like 2 years old now, but I watched them when they were new and I thought they were all right. They're not as zany, which I think might be due to the Patrick Star show being like their outlet for the zany stuff. But I am sort of happy that they've cooled it down now, seemingly. Like, I've also heard good things about SpongeBob's Road to Christmas. Like, it's not as nonsensical as some of the worst of 11 and 12, but again, I haven't got a full assessment. It's already been painful getting through Camp Coral, and not for the controversial reasons, just because it's not a very funny show. Wazowski asks, what's my favorite and least favorite Pixar movie? WALL-E is amazing. Cars 2 is not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but I also haven't seen The Good Dinosaur or Cars 3, which I might like less. Maybe not Cars 3, but Good Dinosaur. Yeah, I just picked Cars 2 as my least favorite, and even then, it's not a terrible movie, it's just a really lame version of Cars, which is already kind of one of their lower tier movies, but it made money. Have I watched Has-Been Hotel or Hell of a Boss? Not religiously, but I am very supportive of web cartoonists getting out into the world and getting their animated shows off the ground and getting large audiences. Sort of like why I haven't been religiously following Smiling Friends or that Zatina stuff, but I am supportive of all of them. I am supportive of the internet being sort of a breeding ground for new animators because it might lead to a new age. Who knows? But again, I don't really keep up with the modern cartoons, so yeah, it is mostly more supportive than active appreciation for those sorts of shows. And lastly, do you think SpongeBob's still consistent in a long time? Counting spin-offs, I really wouldn't say, but season 13, again, I haven't really watched a lot of SpongeBob in like a year and a half. I've mostly been watching the older episodes for the quote of the day account, but at least they're not selling NFTs yet. Jack McGinn only has one question. Who's my favorite SpongeBob character? Honestly, SpongeBob himself, because he is sort of where the show is at any given time, whether he's like very hardworking and passionate, or very silly and loopy, or very naive and dumb. He is sort of the litmus test for any era of SpongeBob, and if you can rely on him to be really funny and charming and hilarious and memorable, then I think that the episode or the season that he's acting in is gonna be that way, which I can't really say about Squidward or Sandy or Plankton or other characters that I really love. Eduardo has a lot of great questions. Do you have Discord? I have an account, not a server. What's my favorite food? Pizza. What are my thoughts on 2020? I haven't got the highest opinion of it so far. My favorite cartoon creators, Matt Groening because of The Simpsons and Futurama, Steven Hillenburg because he only had one but he knocked it out of the park, and Gendy Tartakovsky because I really enjoyed my time with Dexter's Lab and Samurai Jack. I haven't kept up with his modern stuff, but He's always giving you something new, which is something you really sort of want in an industry with this many artistic opportunities. Your Brazilian fans love you. Thank you so much. Moxie Bob Impants. What is your favorite friendship in cartoons? At its best, SpongeBob and Patrick, because it is really damn charming and lovable, and they make for good role models for kids too. Brandy Greensides. Can you do a review on the Garfield Show Season 4 5-part Bewitched episode, please? Hearts, love, Merry Christmas. Maybe. And that's another eventually. But yeah, thank you all so much for your questions. I know it was a longer one, but my fan base is growing, and thank you all so much for that. Hope we have a better 2022, and remember next year, just ask one question per year. I know it's hard, but otherwise I'll get very exhausted. But thank you all for being considerate and passionate and having so much to ask me in general. I mean, I am largely very thankful that you are all generally nice to me, and I do really hope that you have a good day and that you have people who like asking you questions and giving you something to talk about, just like me, online as Employee a Million. Happy New Year, and goodbye for now.